Jake Morrison stood in the cargo bay of the Earth Alliance station and looked at the metal container that had just arrived. He was the commander of the station, and his job was to deal with alien visitors. Today's delivery came from the Varathi Empire, a race of giant insect-like creatures who had become Earth's newest trading partners 3 months ago. Lieutenant Sophie Blake walked up beside him with her tablet in hand. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her judgment on most things. Her face showed confusion as she read the message that came with the container. "Sir, the translation is coming through now," Sophie said, "but I don't understand what they're trying to tell us." Jake moved closer and read the words on her screen. The Varathi message was strange and not very kind. They said they were sending their most unfortunate specimen as a gift. They used words like ugly, broken, and useless to describe whatever was inside the container. The aliens explained that this being came from a species they had defeated in war, and they were giving it to Earth as a test of some kind. "They're sending us something they think is ugly?" Sophie asked. "What kind of gift is that?" Jake rubbed his tired eyes. Dealing with aliens was never simple. Every species had different ideas about what was normal or polite. "Open the container," he said. "Let's see what we're dealing with here." Sophie pressed the button on the side of the container. Air hissed out as the seals opened. White fog rolled across the floor and filled the room with cold mist. When the fog cleared, Jake could see inside the container. A figure sat in the corner, wrapped in torn gray cloth that looked like old rags. She was shaped like a human, which surprised Jake. Her skin was very pale, almost glowing in the dim light. Strange patterns covered her shoulders and arms that looked like tiny stars. Her hair was long and white, falling around her face like silk. When she finally looked up at Jake, he saw her eyes. They were completely black with no color in them at all, like looking into deep space. The woman was shaking badly. "Hello," Jake said in a soft voice. He got down on one knee so he would be at her level. "My name is Jake. You're safe here. Nobody will hurt you." The woman pulled back further into the container. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Then Jake noticed the metal collar locked around her neck. The edges dug into her skin and left red marks that looked painful and old. "Sophie, call the medical team right now," Jake said. "And bring tools to cut metal." Sophie hesitated and looked worried. "Sir, the Varathi message said she's dangerous. That's why they put that collar on her." Jake looked at the scared woman in front of him. She was so thin that he could see her bones. Her arms showed she hadn't eaten enough food in a long time. There were scars everywhere on her body, some old and faded, some new and red. Whatever danger she might have been, she didn't look dangerous now. "Look at her, Sophie," Jake said firmly. "Does she look dangerous to you?" The woman's black eyes met Jake's again. He saw something move in those dark depths. Maybe hope. Maybe she was trying to figure out if he was another person who would hurt her, or if he was different from the others. Dr. Helen Carter arrived in less than 5 minutes. She was the station's chief doctor, a woman in her 50s who had seen almost everything during her long career. But even she stopped walking when she saw the woman in the container. "They call this ugly," Helen said quietly as she moved forward with careful steps. "She's beautiful." Jake helped Helen look at the metal collar while Sophie stood back with her hand near her weapon. The collar wasn't just something to hold the woman in place. It had small machines built into it that were designed to cause pain if the woman tried to use any special mental powers. "This is a torture device," Helen said. Her voice was angry. "Whoever put this on her wanted to break her spirit and make her obey. Can you remove it?" Jake asked. "Give me 20 minutes and the right tools." "But Jake, we need to understand what we're dealing with here. If she has powers that needed this much control." Jake looked at the woman again. She was watching them with those strange black eyes. Her face was hard to read, but there was clear intelligence there. She understood they were trying to help her. "What's your name?" Jake asked in a gentle voice. The woman opened her mouth again. This time a sound came out, barely louder than breathing. The translation device on Jake's wrist made a soft noise as it worked to understand her language. "Lyra," the device said after a moment. "My name is Lyra." "Lyra," Jake repeated and gave her a small smile. "That's a beautiful name. Just like you." Lyra's eyes went wide with surprise. Her hand moved to touch her own face as if she had never heard such words before. Then something happened that Jake didn't expect to see. A single tear rolled down her pale cheek and caught the light like a falling star. In that moment, Jake made a choice that would change his whole life. He would protect this woman. Whatever the Varathi wanted, Whatever cruel game they were playing with her, it ended right now. "Helen, get that collar off her," Jake ordered. "Sophie, send a message to the Varathi. Tell them we received their gift and we're grateful." Sophie raised one eyebrow in question. "Sir, shouldn't we ask what they want in return for her?" "No," Jake said firmly. His eyes never left Lyra's face. "She's not something to trade or bargain with. She's a person, and she's under Earth's protection now." Helen worked carefully to remove the torture collar. Lyra's breathing slowly became more steady and calm. Her shaking began to slow down. When the collar finally fell off with a loud metal sound, she took a deep breath like she was breathing freely for the first time in years. Jake held out his hand toward her. "Welcome to Earth Alliance Station, Lyra. You're home now." Lyra stared at his hand for a long time. Then very slowly she reached out and put her thin fingers in his palm. Her skin felt cool when she touched him, and Jake felt a small tingle like touching something with electricity. The medical scanner in Helen's hand suddenly went crazy. The screen showed patterns that shouldn't be possible. Sophie's hand moved toward her weapon, but Jake held up his other hand to stop her. "It's okay," he said, though he wasn't completely sure that was true. Lyra was smiling now. It was a real smile that changed her whole face and made her look younger. In that smile, Jake didn't see the ugly gift that the Varathi described. He saw someone special who had been waiting her whole life for someone to see her as anything other than a monster. Jake had no idea that this one act of kindness would change everything. Not just for him and Lyra, but for every human and alien in the galaxy. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest moments of compassion. The medical bay became Lyra's new home for the first few weeks. Dr. Helen Carter wanted to keep her under watch, not because she thought Lyra would hurt anyone, but because she had never seen a species like her before. The medical scan showed something strange. Lyra's body seemed to exist partly in normal space and partly somewhere else at the same time. Jake visited every day when he had free time. At first, Lyra would just watch him with those dark eyes following every move he made. She didn't talk much, and when she did, her voice was so quiet that the translator had trouble understanding her words. Helen thought Lyra's language was very old, maybe from a time before the Varathi destroyed her homeworld. "Coffee?" Jake asked on his third visit. He held up a paper cup. "It's a drink from Earth. It might not be good for you, but Helen said your body can handle almost any kind of food." Lyra tilted her head to one side. Jake had learned that this meant she was curious about something. She reached for the cup with both hands and held it carefully. When she took her first taste, her eyes went wide and something like happiness showed on her face. "Warm," she whispered. "Sweet. It has cream and sugar in it," Jake explained. He pulled a chair next to her bed and sat down. "That's how I like my coffee. Probably not very tough, but I've always liked sweet things." Over the next few weeks, these visits became part of Jake's daily routine. He would bring her things from Earth to help her understand humans better. Books with lots of pictures, music on a small speaker, different kinds of food to try. Lyra took in everything with an intensity that seemed desperate, like she was trying to remember every single detail about the people who had called her beautiful. Sophie still had doubts about Lyra. "Sir, we still don't know what she can do," the lieutenant said one evening after Jake came back from medical. "The Varathi files we found say her species could change reality with their thoughts." "Could," Jake pointed out. Past tense. The Varathi killed most of her people because they were afraid of that power. Lyra is probably one of the last ones left alive, which makes her even more dangerous if she decides we're a threat to her, Sophie argued. Jake understood why Sophie worried. It was her job to think about security and safety. But she hadn't sat with Lyra during the nightmares. She hadn't seen how Lyra woke up screaming, her body remembering terrible things that no person should have to experience. Sophie hadn't watched Lyra's face light up over something as simple as chocolate candy or a flower from the station's garden. "I trust her," Jake said simply. Around the 5th week, Lyra finally told Jake about her past. He had brought a device that could show pictures, and he was showing her images of Earth. Oceans, mountains, forests, and cities. Lyra seemed especially interested in the ocean pictures. "My world had waters too," she said softly. Her voice was stronger now than when she first arrived. "Ours were silver-colored, not blue like yours. They made singing sounds at night when our moons came up. You said we're silver," Jake noticed. "What happened to your world?" Lyra's face became sad and dark. The Varathi came looking for weapons. They heard stories about my people, the Vayana, and our special gifts. They told us we had to serve them and become their tools for war. She stopped talking and her hands grabbed the blanket on her bed. We said no. Jake stayed quiet and let her talk when she was ready. They burned our world, Lyra continued. They killed 99 out of every 100 Vayana. The ones who survived they put collars on, trying to break us and force us to obey. She touched her neck where the collar had been. The marks were slowly fading but were still visible. Many of us chose to die rather than serve them. Others went crazy. They kept me because I was young. They thought they could train me and turn me into a weapon. But they couldn't do it, Jake said. Lyra met his eyes. No, I learned to hide my true self and act like I was broken. Then they got tired of me. They were disgusted because I wouldn't become what they wanted. So they called me ugly and wrong and they gave me away like trash. Their loss is our gain, Jake said with feeling. You're not trash, Lyra, you're a survivor. And you're stronger than they could ever understand. Something changed in Lyra's expression. Why do you care about me? Your people barely know mine. We mean nothing to you. Jake leaned forward in his chair. You're not nothing. You're someone who deserves kindness. That's all that matters. The air around them seemed to shimmer and move. Jake felt that tingle again. Stronger this time, like standing in a field of electricity. Lyra's eyes were locked on his, and for a moment he thought he saw stars moving in those black depths. You see me? Lyra whispered. Not what I can do. Not what I could be used for. Just me, the person. Always, Jake promised. That night something changed. Helen told Jake that Lyra's health signs were getting better in ways they hadn't seen before. The stress markers that had been constant since she arrived were going down. When Jake came the next morning, he found Lyra out of bed for the first time, standing by the window that looked out at the stars. Helen said you walked here by yourself, Jake said. He felt happy about this progress. Lyra nodded. I'm remembering how to move normally. The collar made everything hard. Moving, thinking, even just being alive. It feels strange to have control of myself again. She turned to face him, and Jake was struck again by how different she looked. The patterns on her skin seemed brighter today, like star maps drawn across her body. Her white hair caught the light from space and created a glow around her head. I want to show you something, Lyra said. If you'll let me. Of course, Jake agreed. Lyra held out her hand. Jake took it and suddenly the medical bay disappeared. They stood in a place of impossible beauty. Stars hung close enough to touch. Clouds of colored gas swirled in shades Jake had no words for. Space itself seemed alive and singing. This is the between, Lyra explained. Her voice sounded different in this place, with echoes. This is where my people could go. This is where we got our power from. The Varathi never understood it. They only saw what we could do on the surface. Jake turned slowly, looking at everything around him. It's amazing. This is what I really am, Lyra said. Not a weapon. Not a tool. I'm a bridge between what is real and what could be real. My people were artists, Jake. We shaped beauty from the raw potential of existence itself. Show me more, Jake said. Lyra made a gesture with her hand, and the stars around them began to move. They danced and formed patterns that told stories. Jake watched the history of the Vayana people, their culture and their destruction. He saw whole civilizations rise and fall in the space between heartbeats. He saw Lyra's world when it was beautiful and when it ended. Then they were back in the medical bay, standing by the window. Only a few seconds had passed in real time. Jake realized he was still holding Lyra's hand. He should probably let go, but he didn't want to. Thank you for sharing that with me, he said. Lyra smiled. It was a full, real smile that made her look younger and less hurt by her past. Thank you for seeing it. For seeing me. From that day forward, their connection grew deeper. Jake found himself thinking about Lyra all the time. He looked for reasons to visit medical even when he was busy with work. He brought her more gifts, taught her about human culture, and listened as she shared pieces of Vayana wisdom and knowledge. Sophie noticed the change. You're getting attached to her, sir, she warned one evening. Jake didn't try to deny it. Maybe I am. And what happens when the Varathi ask for her back? They gave her as a gift, but diplomatic gifts can be taken back. Then they'll have to go through me first, Jake said. His voice had an edge that made Sophie take a step back. The lieutenant looked at her commanding officer for a long moment. Then she let out a breath. I hope you know what you're doing, sir. Jake hoped so too. But when he went back to medical and saw Lyra's face become happy at his arrival, when he felt the warmth of her hand in his and saw the universe she could create with just a thought, he understood something important. He wasn't just protecting Lyra anymore. He was falling in love with her. And that changed absolutely everything about the situation. 2 months after Lyra arrived at the station, the Varathi made contact again. Ambassador Kreshnal appeared on the main screen in the command center. He was a tall insect creature with mouth parts that clicked constantly as he spoke. Jake stood straight with Sophie beside him as the alien diplomat began talking. Commander Morrison, we trust the gift has been properly thrown away, Kreshnal said through the translator. We are ready to move forward with our trade agreements now. Jake's jaw tightened with anger. Thrown away? Lyra is a person, not garbage. The ambassador's many eyes seemed to shine with amusement. The broken Vayana unit still works? How interesting. We thought your kind would have found its problems and ended it by now. We don't end people, Jake said coldly. And Lyra isn't broken. She's special. A clicking sound came from Kreshnal that the translator said was laughter. Special? Commander, you don't understand what she is. The Vayana can change reality, yes, but that one is damaged. She can't even protect herself properly. Her abilities don't work right. Her will is shattered. We gave her to you as a test of your species. A test? Sophie asked, speaking up. Yes. We wanted to see if humanity had the strength to get rid of a dangerous problem or the weakness to protect it. Your choice will tell us about future dealings. Jake stepped closer to the screen. Then let me make our choice very clear. Lyra is under Earth's protection. She's a member of this station's crew. And if you have a problem with that, you can take your trade agreements and throw them in the nearest black hole. The channel went silent for a long moment. Then Kreshnal's mouth parts spread in what might have been a smile. How interesting. You risk economic alliance for a broken tool. This is either great stupidity or something we did not expect from your species. Very well, Commander. Keep the broken unit. But know this. If she ever gets her full powers back, if she ever becomes what her people once were, we will see it as an act of war. The screen went dark. Sophie turned to Jake. Sir, you just threatened a major diplomatic partner. They threatened one of ours first, Jake replied. Get me Admiral Phillips. Earth Command needs to know about this. The reaction from Earth was immediate. Earth Command wasn't happy that Jake had put the Varathi trade agreements at risk. Those agreements included access to advanced power technology that Earth needed. But they also weren't willing to hand Lyra over, especially after Jake sent them the full medical reports showing what had been done to her. A compromise was reached. Lyra would stay on the station, but she would be officially listed as a protected refugee with limits on where she could go, until Earth Alliance could better understand her abilities and intentions. When Jake told Lyra about the situation, he found her in the small quarters he had arranged for her. The room had a window with a view of space. She had decorated it with things from Earth, a plant from the garden, drawings that crew members had made for her, a tablet computer loaded with books. They called me broken, Lyra said quietly after he finished explaining. She sat on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest. You're not broken, Jake insisted. But I am damaged, Jake. The Varathi weren't completely wrong. Lyra held up her hand and the air around it shimmered weakly. My people could reshape whole worlds. I can barely make a simple illusion. Years of that collar damaged something deep inside me. Jake sat beside her on the bed. So you're not as powerful as your ancestors. That doesn't make you less valuable as a person. You risked your career for me today. Those trade agreements are just politics. You're real. You matter more than any deal. Lyra turned to look at him. Jake saw tears forming in those black eyes. Why? I don't understand why you care so much about me. Jake reached out and gently brushed a piece of white hair away from her face. Because when I look at you, I see someone amazing. Someone kind and strong and beautiful. I see someone who deserves to be happy after everything they've been through. Beautiful, Lyra repeated, like the word was strange to her. The Varathi said I was their ugliest specimen. They said my kind were horrible to look at. They said our appearance alone proved we were wrong and shouldn't exist. Then the Varathi are blind and stupid, Jake said firmly. Lyra, you're the most beautiful person I've ever met in my life. Something changed in the air between them. The shimmer around Lyra got stronger, and suddenly Jake could see what she was seeing. A reflection of himself through her eyes. He looked different, outlined in light, as if she saw beyond his body to something deeper inside. You mean it? Lyra whispered with wonder in her voice. You truly see me that way. I always have. From the first moment you looked up at me in that container. Lyra moved closer and her hand found his. That electric tingle was back but stronger and more focused than before. Jake, I need to tell you something. Among my people, when two souls recognize each other completely when they truly see each other, it creates a bond. The Vorathi never understood this. They thought our power came from violence and control, but it came from connection between people. What kind of bond? Jake asked. The kind that links two beings across space and time. The kind that makes them stronger together than they could ever be apart. Lyra's voice was soft but intense. I'm feeling that bond with you, Jake. I've been feeling it for weeks now. And it scares me because if you don't feel the same way, if I'm wrong about this. Jake kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, careful and slow. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, then relaxed into it. Her cool lips grew warm against his. The room filled with light. Not real light exactly, but something visible only to them. A cascade of colors and feelings that spoke of possibility and promise. When they finally pulled apart, Jake saw that the room had changed. The walls were covered in stars, the same impossible stars from the between that Lyra had shown him before. She looked shocked, her hand covering her mouth. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean to lose control. I'll fix it right now. Don't, Jake said, looking around in wonder. It's perfect. You're perfect, Lyra laughed. The sound was like music. I'm not perfect. I'm damaged, remember? Then we're damaged together, Jake said with a smile. Because I'm definitely not perfect either. Over the next few weeks, their relationship grew deeper in ways Jake had never experienced before. Lyra began to heal not just in body but in spirit. The more time she spent with Jake, the more her abilities came back. Not in violent bursts, but in gentle expressions of happiness. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors in her quarters. Music seemed to follow her through the hallways, though no one could find where it came from. The stars beyond the station windows shone brighter when she was near them. The crew noticed these changes. How could they not? But instead of fear, Jake saw acceptance growing. Lyra went out of her way to help people, using her returning abilities for small acts of kindness. She helped engineer Paul Grant repair a broken system by showing him how the parts wanted to fit together. She took away Nurse Linda Hayes' back pain with just a touch. She even made Sophie smile by creating a small light show of Earth's solar system for the security officer's daughter during a family day on the station. She's incredible, Helen said one evening, while looking at Lyra's latest medical scans. Her biology is literally changing and rewriting itself. It's like your acceptance of her is letting her become what she was always meant to be. Jake watched through the medical bay window as Lyra laughed with some crew members. Her whole manner was different from the scared being who had arrived months ago. She was always this person. She just needed a chance to remember who she was. And you gave her that chance. Helen smiled at Jake. You know what this is, don't you? What you two have together. Love, Jake said simply. Yeah, I know. The Vorathi won't be happy when they find out. A Vayana bonded to a human growing stronger every day. That's exactly what they're afraid of. Then they'll have to deal with it, Jake replied with determination. Because I'm not letting her go. Not ever. But the universe had other plans. A week later, alarms went off throughout the entire station. 3 Vorathi warships had appeared out of nowhere with all weapons armed. They were sending a single message over and over. Return the Vayana or the station dies. The station went to red alert status. Jake ran to the command center as fast as he could, his mind racing with thoughts. They had 12 hours before the Vorathi ships would start shooting, according to the threat message. 12 hours to give up Lyra or watch the station get destroyed with everyone on it. Give me a status report, Jake said loudly as he entered the command center. Sophie was already at the weapons station. 3 heavy battlecruisers, sir. Each one has enough firepower to break this station apart like it's made of paper. Earth Command has been told about this, but the nearest fleet is 18 hours away, so we're alone in this. Jake looked at the tactical screen. The Vorathi ships had moved into a triangle formation around the station, blocking all ways to escape. Sir, we have an incoming message from the lead ship, Sophie announced. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. Ambassador Kreshnal's face appeared, but this time the diplomat looked cold and dangerous instead of polite. Commander Morrison, you have kept a dangerous weapon and let it grow in power. We can sense the Vayana's strength from here. She must be returned to us immediately for proper control. She's not a weapon, Jake said, and she's not going anywhere. Then you kill everyone on that station. All those deaths will be your fault. Kreshenal's mouth parts clicked with clear anger. Do you not understand what you're protecting? The Vayana nearly destroyed the Varathi Empire when they were at their strongest point. One of them, fully realized, could reshape entire star systems. That creature you call Lyra is getting close to that level of power. Jake felt cold inside. You're lying to me. I wish I were lying. The bond she has formed with you, a bond of real connection and love. This is how the Vayana reached their greatest power in the past. They were never meant to be alone, Commander. They were meant to be paired with others who could anchor them, believe in them, love them. Kreshnal's voice took on a tone that might have been fear. With such a bond, a Vayana becomes almost like a god. We cannot allow that to happen. We will not make the same mistake we made before. The screen went dark. Sophie turned to Jake with worry on her face. Sir, if what he's saying is true, it doesn't matter, Jake interrupted her. We're not giving her to them. We won't do it, Jake. Lyra's voice came from the doorway. She stood there in the station uniform Jake had gotten for her. Her white hair was pulled back. Her dark eyes were filled with sadness. I heard everything. I was in the engineering section when the alarm started. Jake moved to her side immediately. We'll figure this out. Earth Command is sending ships to help us, which won't get here in time. Lyra stepped into the command center. Despite the crisis, every person there showed her respect with nods. She had become one of them over the months. The Varathi aren't wrong, Jake. I can feel it happening. What's growing between us? The bond we share is making me stronger every day. I'm remembering abilities I thought were gone forever. That's a good thing, Jake insisted. Is it really? Lyra walked to the big window and looked out at the Varathi warships. My people nearly destroyed an empire with our gift. Maybe we deserved what happened to us. Maybe power like ours shouldn't exist in the universe. Jake took her hand in his. You're not your ancestors, Lyra, and you're not a weapon. You're the person who spends her free time in the garden because you love helping things grow. You're the person who stayed up all night with Carlos Bennett's daughter when she was sick. You're the person who cries at sad movies and laughs at bad jokes. That's who you really are. But I could be so much more dangerous than that, Lyra whispered. The Varathi are afraid of that. Maybe they're right to be scared. Or maybe they're just afraid of something they can't control or use, Jake said. Lyra, I've seen what you can do. You've shown me the between and the beauty your people created. That's not something to fear. That's something precious and rare. Sophie cleared her throat to get their attention. Sir, I hate to interrupt, but we have 11 hours and 40 minutes left. We need some kind of plan. Jake looked around the command center at his crew. Sophie, Helen, Grant, and 24 others. They were all watching him and waiting for orders. Then he looked at Lyra, at the person he had come to love more than anything in his life. Start evacuating people who aren't essential to running the station, Jake said with firm voice. Anyone who wants to leave can take the shuttles. Nobody should have to die because of this, sir, Sophie protested. We can't just give up and let them win. I'm not giving up. But I'm not asking people to die for my choices either. Jake's voice had an edge to it. This is my decision. I'm the one who refused to hand Lyra over to them. If the Varathi want someone's blood, they can have mine. No. Lyra pulled her hand away from his. I won't let you die for me. I'll go to them and end this. Absolutely not. That's not happening. Jake, please. Tears ran down Lyra's face now. I've lived as a prisoner before. I can do it again if I have to, but I can't live knowing everyone here died because of me. I can't carry that weight. You think they'll just lock you up? Jake pointed at the warships on the display screen. They'll kill you, Lyra. Or worse, they'll put that collar back on you and break you until there's nothing left of who you are. I won't let that happen. I can't. The two of them stood there locked in a silent battle. Each refused to let the other sacrifice themselves. Around them, the crew watched with sadness and concern on their faces. It was Helen who finally spoke up and broke the silence. Maybe there's another way we can handle this. Everyone turned to look at the doctor. The Varathi are afraid of what Lyra might become. Helen continued with thought in her voice. But what if we could prove she's not a threat to them? What if we could show them that her power isn't meant to destroy things? How would we do that? Sophie asked. Helen looked at Lyra with hope. You've been healing people and helping them. Show the Varathi that side of what you can do. Show them your true nature. Lyra shook her head. They won't care about that. To them, all power is dangerous unless they're the ones controlling it. Then maybe it's time they learn something different, Jake said as an idea began forming in his mind. Lyra, when you took me to the Between, you said your people were artists. You said you shaped beauty from potential and possibility. Could you do something like that here? Something so big they couldn't ignore it? I don't know if I can. My abilities are still coming back slowly. Something that large and powerful. You're stronger than you think you are, Jake said with confidence. And you're not alone in this. You have me. You have all of us supporting you. Lyra looked around the command center and saw the nods of agreement from every crew member. These people owed her nothing. They had no reason to help her, but they were willing to stand with her anyway. The understanding of this seemed to give her strength. I would need time, she said slowly and carefully. And I would need you specifically, Jake. The bond between us anchors my power and keeps me stable. With your help, I could attempt something that's never been done before. Whatever you need, Jake promised without hesitation. Lyra turned back to the window and her expression became distant and thoughtful. My people once created something called the Song of Unity. It was a gift we offered to other species to show them peace. A glimpse of the Between made real in normal space. It showed the basic connection between all living things in the universe. She paused and took a breath. The Varathi rejected it when we offered it to them. They saw it as a trick or a weakness to exploit. But if I could create it here and now, if I could show them what they refused to see all those years ago, it might change their minds about you. Helen finished the thought. Or it might prove to them exactly how dangerous I really am, Lyra said with worry. But it's worth trying. Jake, if we do this, you need to understand something important. The bond between us will become permanent and unbreakable. Our lives will be connected in ways that can never be undone. Jake didn't hesitate or doubt for even a second. I'm okay with that. Are you? Lyra smiled through her tears. More than okay. You became my whole universe the moment you called me beautiful, Jake Morrison. I've just been too afraid to admit it out loud until now. They had 11 hours to change the Varathi's mind about everything. 11 hours to prove that power born from love could reshape the entire galaxy and change how species saw each other. The countdown to either salvation or destruction had begun. The preparation took place in the station's largest cargo bay. It was a huge empty space that had been cleared of everything except the basic equipment. Lyra stood at the center with Jake beside her, while the crew worked to set up recording cameras at Helen's suggestion. If they succeeded, this moment needed to be saved for history. The Song of Unity requires complete trust, Lyra explained as she marked the floor with patterns that seemed to shift and change even as she drew them. Your species calls it music, but it's more than that. It's a basic harmony, the vibration that lives underneath all existence. Sophie, who had refused to leave with the other non-essential people, watched from the doorway. How does Commander Morrison help you with this? He anchors me to reality, Lyra said simply. Without him, I'd be lost in the Between forever. With him, I can bridge the gap between what is real and what could become real. She looked at Jake with so much love that several crew members looked away, feeling like they shouldn't watch such a private moment. As the hours counted down, Lyra taught Jake what he needed to know. It wasn't hard on his part. He simply needed to hold her hand, to focus on their connection, to believe in her completely. But the emotional weight of it felt enormous and heavy. When I begin, Lyra warned him, you'll feel everything I feel. My memories, my pain, my hope for the future. It will be too much all at once. I can handle it, Jake said with confidence. With 3 hours left before the Varathi deadline, Lyra said she was ready. The crew moved back to a safe distance. Emergency force fields were put up around the cargo bay in case something went wrong. And then Jake took Lyra's hand in his and the universe changed around them. It started small and quiet, a hum in the air that was barely loud enough to hear. Then the patterns Lyra had drawn on the floor began to glow with a light that seemed to come from everywhere, and nowhere at the same time. Jake felt the pull immediately. That feeling of standing between worlds, of existing in multiple places all at once. Lyra's grip on his hand got tighter. Don't let go, she whispered. No matter what you see or feel. And then they were no longer standing in the cargo bay. Jake found himself floating in the Between, but this time, Lyra was beside him. Her form was bright and terrible and beautiful all at the same time. She was showing him her truth. Not the damaged survivor who had arrived in a container, but what she truly was deep inside, a being of pure potential, capable of reshaping reality itself with just a thought. This is what they fear. Lyra's voice echoed all around him. This is why they tried so hard to break me and make me into nothing. But Jake wasn't afraid of what he saw. Instead, he felt wonder and awe. It's the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. Lyra's form shifted and became more human, more like something he could understand better. You really believe that, don't you? Even after seeing this? Especially after seeing this, Jake said. Their hands stayed together, and through that connection, Jake felt Lyra draw strength from him. She began to sing. The sound was like nothing Jake had ever heard before. It was color and light and emotion all woven together into something that went beyond simple music. The song spread outward from their joined hands, filling the between with patterns of amazing complexity. Jake saw connections form between everything, threads of light linking him to Lyra, Lyra to the station to every person on board, those people to Earth, Earth to the stars beyond. Everything was connected to everything else. Everything was part of the same grand design. And then the song pushed further out, reaching beyond the station to the Varathi ships waiting in attack formation. Jake felt the exact moment when the aliens encountered the song. Their confusion hit him like a wave. Their fear was sharp and cold. But also buried deep beneath all their hostility, Jake felt something else in them. They were lonely. The Varathi, for all their power and technology, were isolated and alone. They had built an empire based on control and dominance, but they had no real bonds with anyone. No connections like the one Jake shared with Lyra. The song showed them what they had rejected long ago, what they had destroyed when they burned the Vayana homeworld to ash. On the Varathi flagship, Ambassador Kreshenal stumbled backward as the song washed over him and his crew. His people looked at him in confusion as their commander fell to his knees. His mouth parts trembled. For the first time in his very long life, Kreshenal understood what the Vayana had been trying to offer his people centuries ago. Not control, not servitude or slavery. They had offered connection and unity, the chance to be part of something larger and more meaningful than themselves. Back in the between, Lyra's song grew stronger and more powerful. Jake felt himself becoming part of it, his own emotions and memories weaving into the harmony she created. He shared with Lyra, and through her with everyone touched by the song. His own loneliness before meeting her, his doubts about himself, his fears about the future, and his absolute certainty that she was the best thing that had ever happened to him in his entire life. The cargo bay erupted in light so bright it could be seen even through the thick hull of the station. Ships passing light years away would later report seeing what looked like a star being born in that sector of space. The Varathi warships, so close to the source of the light, were bathed in brightness that went through their armor and reached every soul on board. And something happened that had never happened before in all of history. The song changed them, not by force. Lyra wasn't pushing her will on anyone or making them obey, but she was showing them the possibility of another way to live. The beauty of real connection between beings, the strength that came not from control but from trust and love. Slowly, the light began to fade away. Jake found himself back in the cargo bay, still holding Lyra's hand tightly. She was glowing softly. Her star patterns were more vibrant and alive than ever before. But she was smiling at him. Did it work? Jake asked. His voice was rough and hoarse. Sophie's voice came over the communication system. Sir, you need to see this right now. They made their way to the command center as fast as they could. On the view screen, the Varathi ships were still in position around the station, but their weapons had powered down completely. As they watched, a transmission request came through. Kreshenal appeared on screen, but the ambassador looked different somehow. His posture was less aggressive and threatening. His mouth parts were still instead of constantly clicking. Commander Morrison, Lyra of the Vayana, what you have shown us today requires deep consideration and thought. We request permission to send a diplomatic party to your station to talk. Jake looked at Lyra, who nodded her agreement. Permission granted, Jake said. 2 hours later, a Varathi shuttle connected with the station. Kreshenal came out along with 2 other Varathi. They moved slowly, almost like they were walking on holy ground. They met Jake and Lyra in the station's small conference room, and to everyone's complete shock, the ambassador performed what could only be a bow of respect. We have committed a great wrong, Kreshenal said through the translator, against the Vayana people, against you personally, Lyra, against the basic nature of existence itself. You tried to control what should have been shared freely. Lyra said gently, but that understanding came too late to save my people. Yes. Kreshnal's voice carried real grief and regret. We cannot undo what was done in the past. The dead cannot be brought back. But we can choose a different path going forward. The song you shared with us has touched every member of my crew. Many are still trying to process what they experienced. Some are angry about it, some are afraid, but all of us felt it. The connection we have denied ourselves for so long. What are you proposing to us? Jake asked carefully. A new beginning for our people. Not just trade agreements or polite diplomatic words, but real alliance between our species. The Vayana wisdom shared with Varathi strength and humanity. Krishnal looked at Jake with what might have been deep respect. Humanity who saw beauty where we saw only ugliness. Your species has much to teach the rest of us. Over the weeks that followed, everything changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The Varathi didn't just take back their threats. They became strong supporters and advocates for Earth and for Lyra. Word spread through the galaxy about the human commander who had protected what others called an ugly gift, and about the Vayana who had sung creation itself into new forms. Other alien species began to reach out and make contact. Some had Vayana survivors hidden away in secret, beings they had thought were useless or broken beyond repair. These individuals were brought to the station, where Lyra helped them heal and helped them remember what they truly were inside. A community began to form and grow. Jake was promoted to captain and given command of Earth's first deep space diplomatic vessel. The ship's name was decided by popular vote among all the crew members. They called it the Unity, and Lyra became something that had never existed before. The first Vayana ambassador to the galaxy, a bridge between different species. Living proof that power could be beautiful and good when it came from love instead of fear. 6 months after that first song, Jake found Lyra on the observation deck of the Unity. She stood looking out at the stars in quiet thought. They were heading toward what used to be Vayana space.